Okay, guys, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. I'm really excited to have today's guest on, Vanessa. I'm sure most of you guys already know her, but we talk quite a bit behind the scenes, and we're so much on the same wavelength lately with this whole, metabolism repair, I guess is kind of the best way to put it, journey. And although our experiences are different, we're both kind of focusing on that whole aspect of metabolism repair. So if you haven't listened to a lot of her podcast episodes around that lately, I highly recommend going to do that. But I was just bringing her on today so we could dive into some of the stuff that she's been learning and experiencing herself. So thank you, Vanessa, for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. It's really, really a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been so fun to just talk to you, like I said, behind the scenes, and I feel like we're just so in sync. It's
It's amazing how we've both been just learning about metabolic health and how you can actually restore your metabolism, and coincidentally listening and following the same random people on YouTube and just all kinds of stuff. It's been really cool to a lot of the stuff that I see, like concepts and things that I'm grasping, I see you're grasping them at the same time. And it really reinforces what I'm learning too. So it's been super helpful. And I love that you've been focusing on that, especially in the past year.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's you and I both, we have people that we interact with literally thousands of people at this point. When you get yourself out there you've been doing this way, way longer than I have. So you've been interacting with people for all these years. And, what kind of sparked me to look into this, I don't know about you, is just probably a lot of it is my own journey. But then you talk to so many people who are like, I can't lose weight. I can't lose weight. I can't stop gaining weight. And it's this thing that just repeats and repeats. And it's let's look at this a little bit deeper rather than telling people to just keep cutting their calories and keep restricting and keep fasting and doing all this stuff. It's there's got to be something more to it than just eat less. You know what I mean? Eat less and move more. That's what we're told over and over again. So yeah. Talk a little bit about how you got to where you're at and the interest just personally with repairing the metabolism.
Yeah, I would love to. So I really became interested in what was going on in the carnivore space because, I joined a lot of carnivore Facebook groups when I first started becoming interested in the topic, which was about 2.5 years ago. And I was I'm just going to join these groups and kind of observe what's happening. What are people doing? And what are some trends and patterns that might emerge from that? And what was the common denominator with people who had successful weight loss? Because, I'm always trying to find tools for myself to lose weight healthy and to help my clients. It's the main thing that I focus on is healthy fat loss. Mm-hmm. So people were kind of talking about carnivore as though it was this magical thing that, you just stop eating anything but animal products and these incredible things happen in your body. But there were also a lot of people that I saw who weren't losing weight, who were actually gaining weight and weren't seeing those magical results. But what I saw over and over again with the people that were getting results is they were starting carnivore, eating this in this all-in pattern, like Stephanie Buttermore, where they ate 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, probably coming from a lot of restriction, either caloric restriction or vegetarianism, or you kind of see that protein restriction, fat restriction, and suddenly they're eating as much as they want because they're no longer afraid of the food or whatever. They're no longer holding themselves back. So they're eating 4,000 or 5,000 calories. And then around the 6-month mark, they have this appetite correction and they start eating about half of what they were before, and they start losing weight. But no one was really talking about that, even though
no one talks about them eating less.
But it was happening over and over again. And I kept interviewing people on my podcast, and I was like, okay, so the same thing happened to you around 6 months. Like, you started eating half of what you were before. So you were eating like 5,000 calories and then 2,500 calories. And now you're losing all that weight that you gained because you're eating half the calories. And it was like confusing to me why that wasn't being talked about more
Yes.
or like explained better. And then when people were complaining about gaining weight, they were just being told like, well, just eat more, like just eat more because I ate more and this is what happened. But to me, it seemed like it would be more helpful to just like understand the calorie aspect of it and say like, well, just eat double your calories for 6 months and then eat half, when you're not hungry anymore. But you don't have to count things. You don't have to track things. It'll just happen like very organically and naturally. So I started seeing that. And then I saw like Stephanie Buttermore do the same thing. And I'm like, well, she did the same thing, but not with carnivore foods, just with whatever. So maybe this is like the missing, piece for people who do struggle to lose weight. And then they're told like, well, it's your hormones or like you're not sleeping, or yes, those factors are super important. But most important of all is energy balance. And we kind of act like they don't exist or that isn't valid in keto, but just because you get these metabolic advantages from keto, it doesn't mean that the calories don't matter anymore. And ultimately, when it comes to weight loss, like that to me is like, it's just the bottom line. And it doesn't matter like what you're eating, but if you're eating carnivore, it's going to be so much easier because you're eating these super satiating foods than if you're doing it eating, like we were talking about like Skittles, and potato chips. Like there's no way you're going to ever feel full doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like for years and years, I did low fat this and fat free that. And, restriction and like I did Weight Watchers. That's how I lost 100 pounds 12 years ago, or almost, 12 years ago. It's almost 13, but that's how I tell people that. I'm like, I didn't lose 100 pounds doing carnivore or keto. I did it losing on Weight Watchers, and I ate popcorn and I ate, my Weight Watchers desserts and stuff like that. But it wasn't maintainable for me. And for years, to keep that weight off, I had to continue restricting and going on like cleanses and like cabbage soup diet and just like all these stupid diets. And what I ended up doing from doing years of that was this down regulation of my metabolism. And I see this with people over and over again, and maybe they haven't, with a lot of women especially, maybe they haven't lost 100 pounds. Maybe they just have, 10 or 15 or 20 pounds they've been playing around with for 15 years, 10 years or more. And, they have restricted and dieted, and they come to carnivore because we talk about like, it's almost like, and this drives me a little crazy. I've been calling it out more and more on my channel and platforms, and I've definitely been getting a lot of pushback for calling this stuff out, but we kind of act like in the community, not me, and not you, but there are people out there that act like calories don't matter, calories don't count, don't track and don't weigh and don't measure, which I agree with to an extent. Like, I don't want everyone sitting there with like writing down everything and tracking everything, but we've literally forgotten energy balance, like, and we act as though it doesn't exist. And then there are people, you and I kind of follow some of the same of them outside of the carnivore keto community, who look at those people that are saying this stuff like calories don't matter and they don't count, and they're like really poking fun at and making a joke out of this community like big time. So it's like, wow, it kind of makes my head hurt a little bit. But just to kind of see what that does to people, when they start doing this, especially women, is like with the weight gain, because we're like following all these people that are either saying, I did carnivore, I gained some weight, and then all of a sudden it magically, I lost it, or the calories don't count. Like, there's just a lot of stuff like that floating around. And so I kind of fell into that. I've seen a ton of other women fall into that, where they're just like trying it, but they keep on gaining weight, and then they're like flipping out because they're being told calories don't count, and then there's like some magic thing that happens where poof, like all the weight comes off after 6 months, you know?
It's so funny. It's like, I mean, no disrespect. Like, I really appreciate all the people in the carnivore groups. Like, we have a lot of friends who are in them, who moderate them, but in
Yeah.
some of the ones with people that I don't know really so well, I've seen this thing, and it's like, let's just wait for the magic, and like everyone's waiting for it, and it creates this like really weird culture where like
Yeah.
you have like blasphemy if you speak against it. And for me, I used to believe a lot of these things before I studied science, and then when I went back to school, I started just understanding, well, these things, they feel like magic because they're amazing, but there's actual science behind it. So it's not that I want to dismiss those things. I just want to understand the science behind it. So like with the carnivore being so healing and generating this effortless weight loss, like it feels magical, but it is real, but
Yeah.
there's like actual science behind it. And if you understand it, then you're going to help more people, to be able to actually get those results and not just like gain and gain and gain and gain and feel miserable because they're like, why am I the only one who isn't like losing weight? And they don't realize, well, at a certain point you have to maybe like decrease your intake somewhat, and it maybe like isn't happening for you, or you're being told constantly to just keep eating more, so you're not listening to your body and like letting your appetite correct. So I'm not saying all this to critique those people or criticize them. It's just that I think there are so many wonderful things about carnivore, and I don't want people to get discouraged because they want to get healthy, but they also want to lose weight, and then they're not getting those results, and then they give up, and then go back to like standard American or just doing high carb or something because they didn't get the results. And yeah, like going back to school, those other people that we talk about that we watch, who they come from more a scientific community, and they look at this stuff and they don't understand why we're like denying calories and all
Yeah.
these things, and it's not necessary. Like I had someone, I sent you the message,
Oh
who
yeah.
like really attacked me and said that I was misleading people because I was talking about calories, and I launched my calorie calculator, and it's very strange to like have someone, attack you or tell you that you're misleading people when you're like, no, I'm actually bringing like rationality to this discussion.
Yes.
And that's like, you don't have to track all the time. And that's what the cool thing is about carnivore, is a lot of people actually do carnivore because they just don't want to track their carbs on keto. So it's like this no-brainer way of doing it if you don't like tracking, and you can get a lot of benefits without tracking. But if you come from restriction, chronic dieting since you're 12, like we are,
Yeah.
and your metabolism has adapted to all this restriction you've put it through, you have to like bring it back to life and restore it before you can then get it to lose weight like you've been doing at still a really nice caloric intake.
Yeah, it's been so hard because when I started basically reverse dieting, I was not at my goal weight. And that's what I think is hard for people, is like people think that the only time to reverse diet is if, maybe we're more like in your situation where you overshot, a little bit and lost more weight than you intended to. That's like a great place to be in to start reverse dieting, to like gain weight slowly. I was already 10 pounds pretty much over where I had really wanted to be, where I'm happy, and gained weight. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I already really wanted to lose weight, and now I'm gaining weight. But it's what I had to do in order to get my metabolism to start working again, so that I didn't have to go rock bottom with the amount of food that I was eating. We don't even have to go calories, but I would have to eat such a lower amount of food in order to get my body to respond. It just was tanking my hormones, tanking my thyroid. And if your thyroid isn't working and your hormones are not working properly, you're just not healthy. You know, we talk so much about health in the carnivore community
Yeah.
and try to make that the priority for people, but it's like if those things are off, then you need to do some work. You do probably need to eat more. That may not be like the only solution, and you just make that statement of eat more meat and you'll be fine. There's so much nuance to it, but yeah, it's like it's a loaded topic. And like you mentioned, so many people come into carnivore and they've chronically dieted and chronically restricted, and then there's just like all these promises, and and it can be a little deceiving, and then people get frustrated and then they get really 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 mad, you know. So it's just, it can be complicated for people.
Yeah, and it's like, why not, us understand this better, and we can provide a system for people where it's like, okay, if you haven't dieted, you can do carnivore, and you'll probably, like, if you're a man who's like never restricted, you'll get ripped, and like,
Yeah.
You'll barely have to do anything. I can only imagine like what would happen to my husband if he did carnivore. Like, it would be ridiculous. But if you're a female who's like dieted, like, just know that this is going to be like a year process.
Yeah.
You're going to gain weight for like 6 months, and then you won't be hungry anymore. You'll get to eat a ton for 6 months. You won't be hungry anymore. Your appetite will correct, and then you'll lose the weight, and then you can keep going with that and get to your ideal goal. But it's like such a shift towards a long-term perspective.
Yeah.
That's really, really hard to do. Yeah. Because we get motivated by like, an event we have to attend, or like a season that's coming up, and we're like so short term, and you're like, I need to have this weight off now, tomorrow. Yeah. But over time you start to learn that it never lasts when you do that, and it like makes the situation worse.
Yeah.
Because you end up slowing your metabolism. Like, you get these really fast results, but then you can't maintain it, and then your metabolism is so slow that like you just end up stuck, and you're like not losing weight, and you don't like where you're at, and you're not eating anything. So I really appreciate you for talking about it, and like, let's understand this and not be threatened by the calorie model. It doesn't invalidate anything, but let's put the two together.
Yes. Yeah.
Understand the role of calories and all the magic that comes with keto and carnivore, and like, you feel like you're finally eating like real food all the time that's super nourishing, and the two together are so powerful. Like, but it has to be a shift. And that the other thing is adding in the resistance training.
Yes.
Which I know you've been doing too, and that's a long-term game. Like, I know it's going to take me at least a couple years before like I get to the body that I want to with weight training, and that it's really slow. It's like you don't see any changes for the longest time, and then you see like a little change, and then like you run with that because you're like, I see something, something's happening. But it's such a long term. Like, I'll probably get to my ideal in like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
But there's something really comforting, and like, it takes so much pressure off.
Yeah.
To not be doing it for like a season or an event, but like, I have time to do this, and I can do it in a healthy, sustainable way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the resistance training is just so important, especially for women as we get older. I read, once you hit 40, it's so much harder to build muscle, and you start losing muscle every year over year. And, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon always talks about how muscle is the organ of longevity. And as we age, it's so important. And, I know you and I both, we've kind of talked a little bit about Lyle McDonald and his whole his view on women's health. And some things that he said have been like, whoa, about women's bodies and why we need muscle and quick weight loss, and what that can do to a woman's body is like, we don't realize, like, if you are losing like 10 pounds in 2 weeks, it's not just fat that you're losing, unless it's like a lot of water. You've gone from like a carbohydrate based diet to ketogenic diet, you'll lose water because you're depleting your glycogen. But if you do that and you're on keto or carnivore, you've already depleted your glycogen, you're probably losing muscle and then bone too. That is scary. As women, we need to be mindful of our bone density and it's, and quit obsessing over the number on the scale, because what happens when we're 60 or 70, we need muscle and bone, so we don't break a hip and we're incapacitated, or, you see people that get old, they break a hip and then they're gone. So playing the long game.
The scale weight is just, it holds us back in so many ways, especially when you start building muscle and, the scale is supposed to go up or stay the same. And that's like, it feels like you're not making any progress, but it's so, so important. And the only way to prevent muscle loss is to make sure that you do the diet properly, gradually, and add in the resistance training, because if you don't prioritize the protein and get enough of it, like if you're doing vegetarian or something, or you're doing it too rapidly, or you're cutting calories like too fast, and you don't add in the resistance training, then you're absolutely right, you're going to lose muscle. And they have studies showing where like the two groups both lost 10 pounds, but one group lost like 9 pounds of fat and 1 pound of muscle, and the other group lost like 4 pounds of fat. It's like, well, you look at the scale and you're happy, but your body is now less healthy and less strong, and now like your metabolic rate is slower.
Yes.
And we really need to understand that better.
Yeah.
I think men understand it better. Like Lyle McDonald says, when guys want to lose weight, they eat meat and they go to the gym and they lift weights. Yeah. And like when women do it, we eat salads and like go running.
Yeah, exactly.
Or we do cleanses like we were talking about. And
oh my God, I've done every freaking cleanse known to man. Forget it. Like, it's awful. It's so awful.
And fasting is the new cleanse, like we were saying, right? Like everyone is doing it and everyone loves it, and because you get such fast results, like it's so exciting. But unless you plan to fast for the rest of your life, then you're not going to maintain it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I fell into that, and it did, and I've kind of been pinned as like the anti-fasting person. I'm not, and I'm not like anti-fasting. I think some people do it and it works great for them, but I just think it's overdone. And for me, I did lose lean body mass, and I did see my metabolism slow down when I was overdoing it. I think it can be overdone, and I think it's being abused and overdone, and that people are seeing issues with their losing muscle and possibly bone too, which is really scary. And then when you lose muscle, because you've been talking quite a bit about this, and this is why you want to build muscle in your reverse dieting journey, is because for, what is it, every pound of muscle that you have, you burn how many more calories is it, or
50 more calories? And I mean, people dismiss that, but yet like when I added 8 pounds of muscle, that's what, 400 more calories in a day that you're burning just by adding 8 pounds. And women can add 8 pounds super easily if they just start weight training and doing some resistance training. And I don't use heavy weights at all. You don't have to use heavy weights. Like the point is just to deplete the glycogen in the muscle. So you do that either with like heavy weights and low reps, or low weights and more reps. And it's pretty easy to do that. But gaining like 8 pounds of lean mass is not that hard for women to do if they don't do a lot of training already, or they don't eat a lot of protein. And that's like a huge boost to your metabolic rate.
Yeah. And that's something that we have to keep talking about more and more if we're talking about women's health in general. Is like, who doesn't want to eat more? I mean, I know I love food. I love eating. So that keeps me, motivated to keep lifting weights and to make building muscle a priority, and to stop flipping out about when I step on the scale what it says. It's more important to have more muscle on your body, because you're going to be healthier. And like Gabrielle Lyon says, it's the organ of longevity. It really, really, really is.
But yeah, if you're wanting to gain weight, boost your metabolic rate, restore your metabolic rate, then it's really not that hard to do. Like, I know you do it all the time. Like, I do, 4 workouts a week, and they take about half an hour each.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not like that hard to do, and they're actually kind of fun because you get stronger and like you enjoy yourself seeing the progress.
Yeah, it feels really good. I mean, I've always loved weight training. I've been blessed that most places I've worked teaching yoga, they'll have weight training, they'll have some sort of a gym there. So it's something that's been a part of my life for a long time, but I'm kind of emphasizing it even more now through this journey. So I would love to talk a little bit about how, the whole reverse dieting thing came to you, or you were like, you know what, this is something I want to do. Like, how you got to that idea of like, I really want to do this, just so people can understand that a little bit better.
Yeah, so I started learning and researching more about reverse dieting and seeing that it's this concept that bodybuilders use. Once they get down to their show weight, then they do this reverse diet where they really gradually add back in their calories, and they resistance train at the same time, and they see each kind of time period as a season. Like, this is my improvement season where I'm gaining muscle. I'm also probably going to gain some fat in that. It doesn't matter because I'm building muscle. And then there's the season when they're in like their show prep, and then they're cutting, and they see these like seasons. And there's so much from that bodybuilding world that we could benefit from understanding better and knowing better. And one of those concepts is this reverse diet where you gradually let your metabolic rate adapt by adding more calories. So for example, like the way that I've been doing it is adding 100 calories every couple of weeks. And you just keep doing that as you add in the resistance training, and you kind of adapt it based on like how you feel. Like, do you feel well fueled in your workouts? Like, or do you feel like more tired or sluggish? Then it may be time to like add some more calories in, and you just treat it as a time to improve your body, to gain strength, build muscle. Most of the time, building muscle, you have to be in a caloric surplus. You don't really have to be if you have body fat stored. So, the principle is just gradually boosting your metabolic rate. And, if you've been dieted down to like 1,000 calories, 1,200 calories, whatever it is, and you still want to improve the way your body looks and feels, you can do it this way, but then you can also restore your metabolic rate. And eventually, if you do it really gradually and slowly, you minimize the amount of fat gain as you're building the muscle, so you don't lose like all your progress from when you did that cut. And then, if you do that over time, you get to this, and you're good at it, you get to this point where you just end up being able to eat like more and more and more, and, be more and more lean, and, grow muscle and do all of that. So I wanted to do it because I felt like with a carnivore diet, which I love, and like I still am like very much carnivore, like adjacent, I just found it really hard to eat a lot of food. Like the food, if you're really hungry, carnivore food is super appetizing and delicious. But once you're nourished, it's not even interesting. So it's harder to, especially if you eat a lot of organ meats, like it's harder to make sure you get enough calories in. And like we were saying, I overshot it and I got too thin, and I just got to the point where I didn't like the way I looked anymore. And I was like, I'm not really eating very much food. I don't really like the way my body looks. I'm starting to look like kind of gaunt. And so it's been amazing doing it, and just knowing and understanding this concept, like we talked about too, like your metabolism is never broken. Like
Yeah.
but it does adapt
Yeah.
to restriction. It does adapt to restriction of calories, to fasting, which is long-term restriction of calories,
Mhm.
to all kinds of things that you do. It adapts to excess cardio,
Yeah.
it adapts to everything. So you want to be able to restore it so that you're like able to fuel your body well. And it's been going really well. And I did resistance training when I was in university, but there's something different about it this time where it's more focused, more concentrated, and I'm seeing the progress happening too.
And I bet your whole attitude, you've kind of adopted such a healthy attitude of health and longevity and just making your lifestyle sustainable this time versus the way that it probably was when you were in university too, as well.
Right. When I was like a raw fruitarian in university, it's totally changed, and I didn't really understand food and nutrition at all then. I really just thought that being vegan or fruitarian was the healthiest thing in the world. So
Yeah, that's still a myth that is perpetuating all over the place to very intelligent people that still believe that way, unfortunately. So we have to keep on kind of fighting the good fight for sure.
it was just chatting with Isabel about this before, because she had this video about how her mom reacted when she became vegan. And I was saying, like, when I became vegan, my parents were upset. They were not concerned. They were like, oh, you're just going to go like be healthy, but like you won't be eating all the food I'm making. Like that's annoying or frustrating. But when you go carnivore, my family was like upset. It's like they were concerned. And
Yeah.
it's so ironic because we are so brainwashed to think that veganism is like a healthy choice and carnivore is like dangerous, and it's the total opposite. So we have a lot to change about society's perception of these things. I think some of it is changing, but yeah, there's a lot that still has to be changed.
Yeah, absolutely. We just got to keep fighting the good fight. One more thing I want to talk to you about in this conversation was just something that you had talked about a little bit on a podcast that you did last week with the whole carnivore journey, and then more of this like moving towards reverse dieting, but just kind of what you experienced with maybe food phobias and a little bit of like body dysmorphia. Just that was just a really powerful podcast that you put out last week.
Thank you. Yeah, I had been wanting to share and talk about it for a while. I think that there's more of this in our community than really gets addressed or talked about, and knowing what a struggle it can be like and how validating and affirming and like reassuring it is to read someone else. If you respect someone else and you see them open up about like a struggle that they're having, how much it can help them. So yeah, I wanted to share about how like I did get into some like as a coping mechanism for stress, I did start to have like this dysmorphia, and I posted the definition of body dysmorphia, which Jonathan Shane was one of the first people who helped me to understand what it is. But like you start to obsessively focus on like these perceived physical flaws that you have, and you magnify them so intensely, and it really like affects your quality of life, like how you feel about the way your worth in the world, your value, how like ashamed you become about, like for me it was like my thighs, like I was just so like hyper focused on them, and it was like all I thought about like during the day. And I noticed that I was also like fearing like adding salad back into like my meals, and part of that was like just wanting to fully experience what carnivore is, but that I was like craving these salads, and I was like, no, like I can't have salad because I'm doing carnivore. And I didn't like that like feeling or that thinking. Like I recognized it as like well, it seemed like a bit of food phobia. And so I just wanted to talk about how like I experienced that, and like it can like stress can manifest in a lot of different ways. Like there's probably other things I should have been doing. Like I should have been meditating every day. I should have been doing my more journaling. Like I should have been taking more care of myself and like dealing with stress. But instead, because I wasn't dealing with stress, it was like manifesting in these other ways where like I was kind of stuck in it for a little while, and it really like became difficult just to like feel really bad about my body all the time, and like feel like it was like I wanted to be like thinner and thinner. And there was this like awareness, I guess, through going through this process that there was no like satisfaction in getting thinner and losing weight, because like there's no like real limit to how like thin you can get. Like I didn't, even though I was like getting so thin, like I didn't feel good about the way I looked. Like I didn't feel satisfied. Whereas with building muscle and eating more, I've been surprised at how like satisfied I do feel with the way my body looks. I'm like, oh, I like my shape, and like I like the way that my body's looking, and it's feeling stronger, it's looking stronger. And there's like this, there's no limit to like how much you can continuously improve your body when you are resistance training and gaining muscle. And it's just such a healthier place to be. And I'm sure that that exercise probably also helps with like stress and that kind of thing. But I just wanted to open up about it, and for anyone else who like experienced similar things to feel like they weren't alone, or, you know, just like it wasn't because I had like a diagnosis of an eating disorder or something, but I was like, I think I'm trending that way, like towards some kind of maybe orthorexic thinking, some dysmorphia, where I was like, I need to, you know, make sure that I'm like fueling myself really well, my body and my mind, so that I can deal with stress. And it can be a like negative self-perpetuating cycle where like the more stress you get, and then if you start restricting and like not eating enough, you don't have any energy to like deal with your stress. So like it's worse and worse. And so, yeah, I felt like I almost like owed it to the community that follows me and supports me to open up about it and just share like, this is what I think happened. But like, this is what I've done. And like, I'm feeling so good. And if you are feeling that way, if you are feeling stressed and you're experiencing like some of that, then like, you know, maybe, you know, we can talk about it, or there's things you can do to like fuel yourself better and just, you know, get into a better place about it. So
yeah, it's crazy how it's such an evolution. And I think people are, you know, I've fallen into that too, is like people just, they want to kind of put you in a box. And if you say that you're going to be a certain way or do a certain thing, that you have to do it. And I don't know about you, but like being somebody who's putting themselves out there on the internet and really trying to be transparent about things, it's almost like you're afraid to go against that. Like you're afraid to say, this isn't working for me. Like I've kind of done with the fasting, because you're going to get a lot of pushback. And if you were feeling on carnivore like you really want to have a salad every now and then, I mean, I feel like we have gotten off track where we're talking about salads being unhealthy, you know, or something bad. I mean, if you want to have a salad, it's, you know, you're not saying I want to go down to the ice cream parlor and get a freaking banana split sundae and start eating those on a regular basis. You're talking about a salad. So we have to like continue to be rational, which is like kind of this whole discussion is just like, let's be rational. You know, it's not an all you can eat buffet. You can't just break the laws of thermodynamics, and we need to be clear on what is, you know, healthy and what is not healthy. You know, and maybe some people are going to feel really restricted and disordered if they continue to put themselves in a box, and we need to make that okay as well. There's not just one size fits all and everybody needs to eat a specific way forever, you know?
Yeah, that's such a good point, that it could be that maybe if limiting your food choices like that makes you uncomfortable or gives you any kind of distress, then that's like, it's not a net benefit. Like,
Yeah.
it's not for you, and that's okay.
And I've said in a couple of videos, like, I don't know that people who have severe eating disorders need to jump straight into carnivore. I mean, I think it can be helpful for a specific group of people, but I'm going to see a certain amount of people that go to carnivore with a severe like binge eating disorder, and it may get worse because they're trying to restrict too much and they're trying to go from like a 10 to like a 0, and their body's going to rebel. It's going to make them more stressed out, and you know, it may not be the healthiest thing for them. And I know that I'll get a ton of pushback for saying that, but let's just be realistic. You know, it is a restrictive diet.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's just really interesting how for some people, like that restriction, I know, I think it was your friend Mary Roberts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Said like, well, we always think of restriction as a bad thing, where like you restrict yourself from like crossing the highway. Like,
right.
that's the thing. So restriction isn't always bad. And like, we all have different degrees where like, we know certain restriction like makes life easier, simpler, and all this stuff, but just maybe assessing like, does this cause me more good than bad, or like, is this way of life stressing me out? Because for some people, like, part of the draw for me in carnivore is like, it's mindless. Like, it's just
easy.
Eggs, it's so easy. You don't really have to like plan things. It's just very, very simple. And it is freeing in some ways because you don't have to like negotiate with yourself about like, am I gonna have this like extra thing, and then am I gonna have to make up for it by going to work out, or like, you just don't, like, you get rid of all that noise.
Yeah.
And I love those things about carnivore. Like, I absolutely love that. But just being aware that like, you don't have to get stuck in a box, or like, I'm not allowed to have any vegetables, or, you know, I'm no longer cool like carnivore person or whatever. Like, that's just not, you know, not necessary if you don't have like autoimmune conditions or other things.
Yeah, it's a complicated topic for sure. It really is, and everyone's going to have to find what they're comfortable with. You know, I've been really open on my channel about the fact that I've struggled with addiction in regards to alcohol and certain pharmaceuticals. And, you know, I'm very clear, I'm not going to be putting alcohol in my body, because once it's in my body, I can't stop. And there are medications. Every time I go see a new doctor, I'm honest with that doctor. You cannot prescribe me this, 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 and this. I will just tell them that up front in the very first visit, because I don't know if I'm going to have a moment of weakness one day and be like, okay, sure, I'll take that prescription, knowing exactly what it will do to my mind and my body, you know. And food is not that different, honestly. So it's just different strokes for different folks. And I just love to have these types of conversations to open the door for people so that they don't feel isolated and alone, and that they do feel like, okay, maybe this is restrictive, or maybe this is freedom. But everyone really has to find that individually, what's going to be freedom or restriction for them. And that's going to look different for everybody. So that's why I just really appreciated you coming out and talking about how you were starting to feel like guilty for wanting a salad or vegetables, and you cut it off. You're like, wait a minute, this isn't this isn't rational, you know?
Yeah, and that's, I think, you know, a lot of us come from a background of like loving salads, you know. It's and I felt like I really wanted to have some for a while, and then after a while I was like, I kind of felt like, okay, I think I'm good with the salads. Like, it was kind of a summer like craving thing, but you know, there shouldn't be like a feeling of like, I can't do this or have this, or if it's like a health food. I think like if it's, you know, you're talking about like pizza, carbs, like all these processed foods, or alcohol, like those are things we know are detrimental, but like salad is and vegetables like are perfectly fine foods for most people. And I do see some of that like phobia in our community where people like, I get these really frantic messages from people sometimes are like, you know, I just had this, but it's really high in oxalates. Like, you know, is that, and I don't want people to fear foods and I don't want to contribute.
Yeah.
Like food phobia. So it's like, we need to be aware that certain things, foods have these things, be mindful of our consumption of them. But like, you know, for the most part, like vegetables are still like healthy foods. And I said on my podcast, like I used to think I had to eat them to be healthy. And now I know I don't have to eat a salad to be healthy or eat vegetables to be healthy, but they're also like perfectly fine foods to if they add variety or anything else to your life.
Yeah. I mean, I flipped how I look at that. I see vegetables as condiments.
Yeah.
Because I think it's Mark Hyman who used to say, I don't know that he says it so much anymore, but he used to say, eat mostly plants and use meat as a condiment. And I did that. And now I've like, you know, I see it differently as like, no, eat mostly meat. And if you want to have vegetables, if you want to have plants, those are your condiments, you know, to add variety. And, you know, if you don't react to those things, then why not? And I get the same kind of frantic messages from people that are like, I just really enjoy this or that. And I'm like, well, do you react to it? Does it hurt your body? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, then I don't see a problem with it, you know?
I think that's just so important to underline that there are certain people in our space who cannot like eat those foods, or they will have like a very strong reaction to them. There's people like Michaela, like
Yeah.
she just discovered that she could have tea, like she can't have anything other than beef, or she has a really strong reaction. There's lots of people who have this extreme autoimmune sensitivities, and carnivore is so beneficial for that. But if you don't have that, those people would be eating those other foods. Good. So that's, really important to keep in mind. And like, it's good that I love how your whole theme is like, let's stay away from dogma, and like, there's a risk, just like with being vegan, where you get like really rigid and extreme. And I can see that that's a tendency like in me from formerly being vegan, that some of us might translate that to carnivore, and it's like, well, no, it should be the opposite of that, like rigidity. It should be like just getting health, feeling good, focusing on the most nutrient dense foods, but not fearing foods either.
Yeah, it's like such a fine line to walk, you know.
Yes.
And yeah, I feel like there's a lot of reverse veganism that is happening in carnivore community, and it can be kind of scary to be on the receiving end of it for sure. But I'm going to keep on, and I know you are too, just trying to be rational and anti-dogmatic and do the best to be transparent about the journey, because it's ever evolving, it's ever changing, and it's just important to keep an open mind, you know, and keep health as the goal. You know, that's the goal here, is not to be perfect with your food or be clean or be orthorexic and like super restrictive. It's like, are you healthy? What do your hormones look like? If you're a woman of reproductive age, are you having a cycle every month? Are you ovulating? Like, let's talk about that stuff rather than eating the perfect organic grass-fed, you know, as Dr. Berry says, panda massaged piece of meat. You know, let's kind of chill out a little bit on that type of behavior, because it's easy to fall into, but it's not going to long-term help your health either.
Yeah, I love just what you say about the, you know, the bank account and having a budget. And it's just like, it's so much easier to spend money than it is to save it. It's the same with eating. Like, it's so much easier to overeat on calories than not. And I just think it's helpful. Like, if it helps anyone out there to track, like you've been tracking your calories and like it's been helping you healthily, slowly lose weight. And that's how so many bodybuilders and like physique competitors, like they know these techniques, like they use them.
Yeah.
to get their goals, and then to reverse out. And like, we all should be able to understand and use those tools and not like just think that there's like this magic happening. So
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for talking about all that stuff. And it's really been helpful for me watching your channel, like how you've been sharing your story and like how you've been going about it. It's like I said, I've been mirroring your experience, and it's super validating to see you like coming across the same concepts, and like also having that really rational approach. So
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today. I know we could probably like keep going for another hour at least. But yeah, this has been super fun. I know we'll have to do it again soon, and I'll put all of your links below. But if you just want to shout out for anybody who doesn't know how to find you, what's the best way to find you, get in touch with you, all that stuff?
yeah, so I have a podcast called Fast Keto, which comes out every week. There's a couple episodes that come out every week. And on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, it's all Ketogenic Girl. And same for my website is ketogenicgirl.com. So you can find all that there, and my cookbook, which is Keto Essentials, on Amazon.
Awesome. Well, I will link all that below. And thank you again so much for coming on chatting with me today.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
You're welcome.